All right, well, happy Father's Day again to all of you. We are going to be continuing in our series in Acts, and recently we've been focused in on Paul's mission first to Jerusalem, and then from there to Rome. And so Paul went to Jerusalem. There he went through various ambushes. The religious leaders tried to take his life, and he then went through various trials. And then through that, he said, I'm going to go to Caesar and go to Rome. And so God said, you're going to go to Rome. We're going to get you there. So Paul got on a boat, went to Rome, and on that boat, he ran into a storm. And that storm wrecked the boat, literally. And we ended last week with Paul and Luke and the other 200 plus people on the boat swimming to an island for safety. And that's where we pick up this morning. And so I thought it would be appropriate to entitle this message, How to Survive on a Deserted Island. And I think we've all thought about this probably because this idea of survival is so popular today. Has anyone ever seen any of the shows that are out there? Thought about the various things that you could do to survive in a survival situation? I know I have. I've watched a lot of the shows. And this being Father's Day, I thought this would be a very manly topic to talk about. Survival instincts and hunting and all those things that you can do to survive on your own. But it's surprising, and maybe not surprising, but the women in these shows and in these survival situations, they do really good. And oftentimes they do better than the guys. So I don't know what that says about the guys or whatever, but it's an all play. You know, we're all involved in trying to think about how to survive on a deserted island. So I don't have personally any experience in a survival situation. Maybe some of you do, and you'd be more experienced to give this part of the sermon. But I did read a National Geographic article. So can you learn anything on the internet, right? And so here's what I learned about how to survive on a deserted island from National Geographic. The first thing it says is that you need water. You can't go that long without water. You can go a pretty long time without food, but you have to have water. Now, where do you get water? You could set up a barrel to collect it if it rained. You could find it in a cave. Maybe if it's running over the edge, you could collect it. A place that you might not first think about to find water. I mean, you're on an island and you're surrounded by water, but you can't drink any of it, right? But if you dug in the ground, you know, far enough, you'd be able to get some water that's good to drink. Another place that I found out this week that you could get water is in coconuts. Now, if you're ever in a situation where you need to drink fresh water from a coconut, I learned that you have to climb all the way to the top of the tree because that's where the newest coconuts are, and those are the best for drinking fresh water. The ones that are a little lower on the tree are more mature and they're more oily, so they're not that good for drinking fresh water. So, you know, just so you know, I see all of you taking notes this morning. So you need water. The second thing that the article said you need to survive on a deserted island is food. Water and food. You gotta have food. If you're hungry, your body and your mind does some pretty weird things if you're really hungry. And if you eat the wrong type of food, it could really mess you up. You don't want to be in a survival situation and have bad stomach things going on. That's not good. So where do you get food? If you're on an island, a great place to start is fish. You can go out to the water, go get some fish, create a hook or some sort of trap and fish. A good way to fish is to find some bones on the island and shave them down so they're really sharp. And then you can tie them to a long stick and spear them on the water. You could also set traps for other critters on the ground. I saw a video one time where a girl made a slingshot and there was a little bird up in the tree, and she took her slingshot and shot it and killed this little bird for her food. That was pretty impressive shot. So water, food, and shelter. You need a shelter. Why do you need a shelter? Well, you need a roof in order to protect you from the rain. It keeps you dry. You need a roof to protect you from the sun so that you don't get sunburnt You don't want to be dealing with sunburn in the middle of a deserted island when you're trying to survive. A lot of times sunburn kicks these people off the shows or makes them quit because it just is horrible. You can build a shelter by getting some like palm trees or leaves like this and branches and leaning them up against the tree and sleeping underneath that. That's called a lean-to. Or you could create like an A-frame where you set up these sticks and then this beam going across. You could take bamboo and bend it so it's nice and covered like a roof, and then layer these palm branches on the side to create a nice little shelter. You want to raise the floor off the ground so that the cold floor and the bugs and stuff don't eat you. So you got water, food, and shelter, and the National Geographic article says you're ready to go. But I thought they were missing something. Don't you think they're missing something? What's an important thing? Fire, yeah. I mean, that was like a no-brainer, right? You need fire to do everything, right? Boil the water, to cook the food, to keep you safe from the bugs and the animals and things like that. So fire is really important. Water, food, shelter, and fire. And then we're ready to survive on a deserted island. So let's see how Paul and Luke and the people on the boat survived on this deserted island. Don't be jumping ahead of me back there. There's 4 ways that Paul and Luke survived on this deserted island. Look with me at verse 1. This island, when they had been brought safely through, then we found out that the island was called Malta. Malta is 60 miles south of Italy, or south of Sicily, south of Italy where Rome is, in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. This island is called Malta. You could go visit it today. And so what was the first thing that Paul did when he got on this island? Verse 2, the natives showed us extraordinary kindness, for because of the rain that had set in and because of the cold, they kindled a fire and received us all. So the first tip on how to survive on a deserted island is to find out that you are not alone. Find out that you are not alone. So I hear you laughing at me, and I get it. I've already thought this through, right? You're saying, well, if there's people on the island, then it's not a deserted island, right? I know that. All right, give me a break. I already know that. But I say it this way, and I say it sarcastically like that, because so often in our lives, we might feel like we're on a deserted island for one reason or another. We feel like we're alone in this situation, that we're trying our best, but it's all about us, and it's all up to us because no one's there. No one's able to help us. No one cares about us. We might feel alone. We might feel lonely. And so I'm sure you've been in that situation before. I know I have, and we know people who have. And so if you show up in that person's life, or if someone told you in that situation, say, hey, I know you feel alone, but hey, look over there. There's a person. You're not alone. How does that go over? Not as good, right? So I think there's value in stating the obvious in a situation that you feel alone, that you feel lonely, that you feel it's all up to you and nobody's around, to just look around. This morning, look around. There's so many of you here. And so you might feel alone, but it's helpful to state the obvious. And in this situation, right, it's not a deserted island. Of course, there's people there, right? Well, it's not always that easy. But I hope acknowledging that fact can help you take that next step to say, yeah, you know what? I might feel this way, but it's not exactly true. And look what happens to Paul, and look what happens to the people on the boat who did take this step to figure out there's people here. Look what they did. These natives, the people that lived on Malta, they showed us what? Extraordinary kindness. These people didn't know these guys, the natives, like they were invading the land. Maybe they thought these guys on the boat were going to take over and, they were going to do some fight and all this stuff, but these natives showed extraordinary kindness to Paul and to Luke and to the people on the boat. What did they do? All the stuff, they provided all the stuff that we just talked about that is necessary for a survival situation on an island. They gave them fire, they gave them food, they gave them water. That's so awesome, and that's so kind of everybody. I mean, just think about it. Paul and Luke and everyone on the boat, they could have been so happy to just arrive on the shore. I mean, they're kissing the ground and they're praising God and thanking God. We made it, we survived. And then they just sit there, right, and just hope somebody comes to save them eventually. But that's not what they did. I mean, they might have taken steps to explore the island, and they met some of these people. Or the people, I'm sure, saw the storm. They saw the boat crash and heard the screaming. And imagine that scene, right? They probably went out to go find them. And I think that's a good picture for us as this church, is that we should be the people that helps people find out that they are not alone. We should be the ones that hear the boat cracking, the storm coming, the people screaming, and we need to be the ones that go out, and what do? We show them extraordinary kindness. We go out and we supply what they need to survive, the fire, the food, the shelter, whatever the case may be. And if and when those people decide to walk through these doors, I mean, it's like, wow, here's a person. I don't know them. I mean, who knows what happened, how they got here, but we love them and we accept them and we tell them that you are not alone. And that is so important. And so maybe this morning you have come in the doors and you do feel a little bit like you're alone. I would tell you, and I would encourage you to take steps to explore the island. I mean, not everybody you come in contact with will be your best friend. Not everyone will connect that great. But the more you explore, the more you get yourself into different situations and different environments where you can make those connections, the easier it will be. And there will be people, I promise you, that are ready to show extraordinary kindness to you. And fathers, you know this really well. Finding out that you're not alone. I mean, you're great at this. Showing up for your kids' stuff, for your wives' stuff. I mean, some of you are coaches on teams, and you're there, and you're playing ball with your kids in the backyard. You're showing up in their life. You're letting them know that you are not alone. You don't have to do this on your own. I'm here for you, and I want to help provide for you and show kindness and love to you. You show up for your son or daughter's music and dance recitals, and you're there. And continue every day, men and fathers, to show up for your children, to show up for your spouse and say, I am here, I am present. And that means your presence means so much to the people that are closest to you. And so the first tip on how to survive on a deserted island is to find out that you are not alone. The second tip to survive on a deserted island is to trust God to protect you. Look how God protects Paul in these next couple verses. Verse 3, and when Paul had gathered a bundle of sticks and laid them on the fire, so Paul's just helping. He's doing just a normal everyday activity just to help out. A viper came out of the heat and fastened itself on his hand. I mean, have you ever tried to do your best at something? You're giving it your all, and it comes back to bite you? Literally. And when the natives, verse 4, saw the creature hanging from his hand, they began saying to one another, undoubtedly, this man is a murderer, and though he has been saved from the sea, justice has not allowed him to live. Justice. You could capitalize that J. They've made that term, that idea, a God. They say if bad things happen to you, you deserve it. You must have done something bad. If good things happen to you, you deserve it. You must have done something good. But look what happens, what Paul does in verse 5. He shook the creature off into the fire and suffered no harm. And then I love this, verse 6, but they, the natives, they were expecting that he was about to swell up and suddenly fall down dead. But after they had waited a long time, like they were expecting this, like, all right, wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. Yeah, I know you're just fine, doing a dance, feeling good, whatever, but wait for it. And they waited, and they waited, and they waited, but they saw nothing unusual happen to him. And so what would happen? They changed their minds and began to say that he was a god. So this is an epic story, right? I mean, this is remarkable that someone gets bitten by a poisonous snake and survives. And it's so remarkable that if there is a writer in the Bible who wrote at the end of Mark chapter 16, that this section of Mark was probably added later. It's not included in the earliest manuscripts of the Bible. It was probably added later. So this writer was probably referring to this event and what happened to Paul. It was so memorable that he wrote this at the end of Mark. Let me read this to you and tell me how much this sounds like Paul's situation here. Mark 16, 17, and 18. These signs will accompany those who have believed. In my name they will cast out demons, and they will speak with new tongues. They will pick up serpents, and if they drink any deadly poison, it will not hurt them. They will lay hands on the sick, and they will recover. So there are some churches today in this country that bring poisonous snakes or rattlesnakes up on the stage and in the church, and they hold them. And they might jump around and they might swing them around. Poisonous snakes. Because why? Because of this passage and what happened to Paul. And on the surface, it just blows your mind. But they would say that if you're a true believer, this sign that you will hold snakes and they won't bite you, or if they do, you will survive, or if you do and you don't survive, then it's time for you to die. They believe that. But that's not what's happening in this passage. What is Paul doing? He's not in a church service jumping around with snakes. He's what? He's collecting firewood, right? He's just doing about his everyday normal life. And it's in the routine of that things happen. And he was bit, but God protected him. He trusted God to protect him. And so we can do things in our normal routine, in our normal life. Fathers, it's great. You try and help out around the house. You do the fire. You paint a little. You fix the computer. You do the stuff on the car. You do all that stuff. Maybe you try and cook dinner one night and it doesn't turn out the way that you want it to. But you don't give up, right? You don't just say, well, I can't do that ever again. I mean, you trust God to get you through whatever it is that you're going through. And He will protect you. And He will get you through it. And that's what happened to Paul here. So two things. God miraculously protected Paul. And then the second thing was that the natives changed their mind very quickly about this guy that Paul was. So first, Paul was miraculously protected by God. I mean, God had been bringing him through Jerusalem. He'd bringing him through the ship, the storm, the shipwreck. And now He's taking him through a snake bite. Like, do you think that God is going to get Paul to Rome? Yes. I mean, is there anything that's going to stop Paul from getting there? No. There is nothing in your life that will stop you from God getting you to where He wants you to go. I mean, He is going to get you there. And it might be hard. You might go through some crazy stuff. But He's going to get you there. He's going to protect you. And look what happens to these natives. I mean, they see this in Paul. And their total mindset shifts like crazy, right? I mean, initially they thought, wow, this guy is a murderer. This guy, right? He must have done something horrible to deserve a snake bite. Yeah, he made it off the boat okay, but this God justice wasn't going to leave him live that long. But Paul's life is miraculously saved. And what happens? They change their mind completely about this guy. They start calling him a god. So a lot of times, us Christians, we oftentimes think and live like these natives, right? When bad things happen to us, when we go through difficult circumstances, we say, oh, I must have deserved that, or God's punishing me, or is God even real? Can I really trust him? Does he love me? Why would he allow this to happen to me? He can't be there. But then we experience something awesome, something amazing, and we're like, wow, God really loves us. He's blessing me. He's all for me. He's great and mighty and powerful, and he's there. And we might experience this range of faith and emotions in the matter of days, maybe even hours. But God wants our faith to be firmly rooted and anchored in Jesus Christ, and not be on this roller coaster of faith and emotions. Because what did Jesus do for you? He created you, he created everything, and he became a man. And he lived on this earth a perfect life and died on the cross for you. He was buried and he rose again the third day. And so whenever we doubt if God loves us, if God cares about us, he already said he had, in the most amazing way, the most valuable way possible. He offered his life for you. He gave his life for you on the cross. So you don't have to doubt if God is real and if God cares about you, no matter what happens over here. It's not about what you do, and it's not about what happens to you. It's about what God has done. And that's what makes all the difference in our faith. And it's this faith that needs to be firmly rooted and anchored in Jesus and not in whatever happens to us or what we do. And so when we anchor our faith in Jesus, it gives us a great opportunity in the various trials and difficult circumstances that we experience to be a witness, to evangelize, to share the gospel, to share this truth with people. Because everybody's going through something. And so when you're having this conversation, you say, hey, what's going on in your life? And they tell you, and they say, hey, what's going on in your life? And you tell them. It creates this connection. And so you say, well, how are you getting through this circumstance? And they say, whatever they're going to say. And they say, how about you? How are you getting through? And you say, well, my faith in God is getting me through. And my prayer, I pray to God, and I show up to this thing called church, and these people around me support me, and they help me, and they're there for me. And that's really helping in this situation. And there's that natural connection. And you're able to explain how Jesus has made a difference in your life. And that is something that we should all do. But what's interesting is that Paul and Luke, in this story, it's not recorded that they do this. I mean, there's nothing about them sharing the gospel. And these people call him a god. And in another part in Acts, when people do that, Paul is quick to tell them, no, I'm not a god. But here, we don't read anything about that. So, not sure. It wasn't Luke's purpose in including what happened. Maybe no one believed. I don't know. But trials give us an opportunity to share our faith that's firmly rooted in Jesus. And that's what I believe Paul probably did that. And if you go to Malta today, they've really memorialized this story in the Bible. I mean, there's Paul beaches and statues, and it's a big deal for them in this island, this story of what happened. And so the first tip, the how to survive on a deserted island, is to find out that you are not alone. The second tip to survive on a deserted island is to trust God to protect you. And the third tip on how to survive on a deserted island is to take care of others. Take care of others. Look in the next couple verses, starting in verse 7, of how Paul takes care of others on this island. Verse 7, now in the neighborhood of that place were lands belonging to the leading man of the island named Publius, who welcomed us and entertained us courteously 3 days. Again, great, extraordinary kindness being showed to them, and this time by the leader of the island. And it happened, verse 8, that this man's father was lying in bed, afflicted, and with recurrent fever and dysentery. This still happens today on Malta. They found something in the milk, or the goat's milk, that causes this to happen. It's a real thing. And Paul went to see him And after he had prayed, he laid his hands on him and healed him. So Paul's gift of healing was not limited to certain people in certain regions of the world. Like God's gift to you, God's ministry that he's given you, extends to every person, no matter where they live, no matter what language they speak, no matter what religion they follow. God's gifted you and gifted believers to reach those people. I mean, these natives in the middle of an island, in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, are being touched by God. And after this had happened, verse 9, the rest of the people on the island who had diseases were coming to him and getting cured. I bet they were. And they, as a result of all this, honored us. So Luke and Paul, Luke was what? A doctor. So he must have been involved in helping cure some of these things too, with many marks of respect. And when we were setting sail, they supplied us with all that we needed. So a big truth in life and what Jesus taught was that we need, or whoever loses their life will find it, but whoever finds their life, whoever really holds on to their life, is going to lose it. The big truth is that we need to submit, that we need to serve, we need to put ourselves below other people. We need to put other people's needs in front of our own. And think about Paul. He wound up on this island. He just experienced probably the most traumatic experience of his life. And what does he do? He shows extraordinary kindness to people. He ministers to other people. I mean, wouldn't it have made sense for Paul to get off this boat, to swim to shore, and to just sit on the beach and thank God and say, oh God, you made it. You brought me here. Thank you. And just take it all in, just be recharged for a while. How about especially when the natives came and they offered their soup and their fire and say, hey, come in our house, take a rest. You've just been through this traumatic experience. Come and settle down. Just relax, be recharged. Wouldn't that have made sense just to take it all in? Just relax. I mean, hey, I'm on a Mediterranean island. I'll just take a vacation for a while. This is great. How about when he was bitten by a snake and everybody on the island thought that he was a god? I mean, what if people thought that about you, right? You'd be like, oh yeah, give me this and give me that and do this for me. That would have made sense. That's how our world operates. But Paul wasn't doing what the world says to do. What was he doing? He was doing what his Lord and Savior did, who came not to be served, but to what? To serve. He came to serve. And so Paul comes to serve, even when he just experienced a shipwreck in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. Paul is looking for ways to serve. So fathers, it's awesome when you serve. Dads, you show up and you paint those walls, you help with the cars, you do the things that need to be done. You help your kids with homework, you play with them, you serve them, you lift them up, and that is awesome. You put their needs, your wife's needs, ahead of your own. So the first tip on how to survive on a deserted island is find out you're not alone. The second tip is trust God to protect you. The third tip is to take care of others. And the fourth and final tip is to use what God provides. Look at these next couple verses starting in verse 11. At the end of 3 months they were on this island, we set sail on Alexandrian ship, which had wintered at the island. You mean to say that for 3 months there was a boat going to Rome on the same island that Paul ended up on? I mean, talk about coincidence, right? And talk about God's provision. I mean, out of all the islands and all the places that their boat could have ended up on, it ended up on an island with a boat that was just waiting out the winter, ready to go to Rome when it became good enough. And not only, look, we get this interesting detail about this boat. It had the twin brothers for its figurehead. Now, maybe you've seen the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, the new one that just came out. On the front of their big pirate ships, what is there? Usually I picture a mermaid. There's some figurehead. There's something that's guiding the boat, protecting the boat, overseeing the boat. And these twin brothers were Roman gods. And so the Romans on this ship, put these on their boat, and these Roman gods, the gods of sailing, was going to take this boat safely to Rome. Imagine Paul and Luke when they saw this boat. I mean, besides being totally just amazed at God's provision, they probably laughed to themselves, like, our God is using a Roman boat with Roman gods on the front to take care of us. I mean, our God is greater than any other thing. I mean, any other God, any other thing that we can imagine. And other people say, oh, this thing will protect us. No, our God will protect us. And He will use whatever He needs to use to protect you and bring you to where you need to go. And so, after 3 months, they got on this boat. They went to Syracuse, verse 12, and stayed there 3 days. Verse 13, and there we sailed around and arrived at Rhegium, and a day later a south wind sprang up, and on the second day we came to Puteoli, and there we found some brethren. Of course they did. There were some Christians there that were just ready and prepared, and they took care of them for 7 days, and then they came to Rome. I mean, isn't it great when we show up to places that God has already gone before us? I mean, Paul's never been here before, and God has believers there, ready to minister to his needs, ready to minister and encourage him. And not only that, look what happens when they get to Rome. And the brethren, when they had heard about us, came from Rome, as far as the market of Appius and 3 Inns, and I know you know where all that is on the map, right? It's like a couple, 20, 30 miles south of Rome, to meet us. And when Paul saw them, he thanked God and took courage. So not only did Paul show up to a place, and there just so happened to be Christians there that were ready to minister to him, these Christians went out of their way, walked or however they got to this place to meet Paul. And they heard that he was coming. And how awesome is that? Again, that idea of let's go out and meet those people and tell those people that they are not alone, that we are here for them. And that when they do come, we are here for them and ready to show extraordinary kindness. It's great to know that God has gone before us and has gotten everything ready that we need to survive and to keep on continuing to accomplish the purpose that God has given to us. I think a major time when I experienced this was in college. I was coming up, graduating high school, and I came to Lebanon Valley College. And I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything. But guess what God had already prepared for me? This church. You. He'd already been preparing you for me. And he'd been preparing, Bible study leaders on campus. He'd been preparing people that were there that come around me to tell me that I'm not alone, to take care of me. And then I took steps to, take care of them. And God protected me and saw me through it. But that next stage of life is always scary, right? We don't know. We've never been there before. Father's Day. I'm not a father. Not yet. But I know that one day, when I am, God has gone before me in that. He already knows what is going to happen, and He's going to be there with me. He's going to prepare me for it, and He's going to provide for me things that I can use and people that I can use to get me through that. He's done the same for you. I mean, whether it's having a child or maybe it's seeing a child to go off to college soon or whatever that next stage of life for you is, God has already gone before you, and He has prepared that boat. He's prepared those things, those people there that are already there, that are ready to take you and to protect you in that next stage of your life. And that is so exciting to know that. So, if you ever feel like you're on a deserted island, what are the 4 things that you should do? Number 1, find out that you are not alone. You are not alone in this. There are people that are willing and ready to extend extraordinary kindness to you. The second thing that you should do is trust God to protect you. It's not always going to be easy. Things might come back to bite you, but God will see you through it. He will get you through it. He will help you accomplish His purpose in your life. The third thing, to how to survive on a deserted island is to take care of others. It doesn't always make sense. Sometimes we think, oh, we just need time for ourselves. But when we put others' needs ahead of our own, God has a way of meeting our needs. God has a way of lifting us up when we submit to Him and also to others. And the fourth way, to how to survive on a deserted island, is use what God provides. God's already been there. He's given you all that you need. Use it. Use those people. Use those things that God provides, and you will survive on a deserted island. So we've been talking a little bit about fathers. We've given out gifts to the fathers. What I'd like to do is for all the men, all the fathers to stand up, because I want to give you a round of applause and everybody to celebrate you. So if you're a man and you're a father, would you stand up? And everybody, even the other fathers can give a round of applause, because there we go. Awesome, awesome. And now that you are standing, I want to see if you would remain standing. Now, this is up to you. I want to pray for you. And I want to pray for you that you would trust God, that you would become the man that God wants you to be, that you would take care of others, that you would continue to use what God has provided in your life to take care of the people that are closest to you. So if you would like me and all of us to pray for you, just remain standing, and let's close in a word of prayer. God, we thank you so much for today. We thank you for these men and for everyone here this morning. And no matter what they are feeling, whether they feel alone or lonely or trying to do it on their own or wherever they might be, God, I pray that they would find out that they are not alone, that there are people there. There is a church here. There is a Savior in heaven that loves them, that wants to help them, that wants to encourage them each step of the way. God, I pray that you would just empower them and strengthen them to show up for the people in their life that are closest to them. May they just be such a blessing to those that are around them. So God, thank you for what you have done and what you will do in their lives and in our lives now. Help us, Lord, to use what you have provided, and thank you so much for your blessing and going before us. And it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.